King Charles's massive Harry and Meghan coronation gamble. The king has blinked and wants to broker a deal with his renegade son, but it could come at a high cost. Hello and a very warm welcome to the Celebrity Tribute YouTube channel. Once upon a time, it looked like a pretty cushy gig to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. To be fair, the headgear is a little bit over the top, and having to oversee royal weddings with live global TV audiences numbering in the billions could be a little bit intimidating. But still, it seemed like it was a relatively good appointment, what with getting the keys to Lambeth Palace and all, and also never having to host a parish bake sale ever again. So in 2013, Justin Welby was named to the post, and I think right now we can feel a little bit sorry for him because he's going to go down in history as the first leader of the Church of England ever to become all wrapped up in controversy after an Oprah Winfrey TV special, and he is also the very first leader of a world religion ever to be called in to stop a possible Netflix story arc. Well, over the weekend, he was in the news once again with the Mail on Sunday reporting that King Charles has now decided it's a lot better to have the royal renegades Harry and Meghan attend his coronation than to leave them to their own devices back in Montecito. And so to that end, he has asked the Archbishop to broker a deal with the two. According to the latest news that is being reported, the King's new opinion is that if Meghan and Harry stayed away from London, it could end up being a greater distraction than having the two of them attend, which is why Charles is apparently prepared to make concessions to persuade them to attend. On the table for Harry reportedly is a high-profile seating position in the Abbey, or an informal assurance that he will be able to keep his titles as an inducement to attend. But there is one little problem with the king's plan. Apparently, the heir to the throne, Prince William, has some concerns about the king's little scheme. The UK media is reporting that William fears that unless Harry's visit is tightly scripted, he could steal the limelight by, for example, going on a walkabout in a deprived London borough with Meghan. Now, if they can steal the limelight just by going on a little walk, then what does that say about the king's reign? But anyway, let's continue. The important takeaway in all of this is that Charles wants his son and Meghan inside of Westminster Abbey for his big day, and so he is willing to give them some pretty good seats and not stick them behind a big candle. At this point, he's willing to do pretty much whatever it takes to make sure that some PR crisis does not overshadow his big day. But that does not necessarily mean that Meghan and Harry are interested in this scheme, so let's not assume they are teaching their kids to curtsy just yet. And it looks like Harry's got his big boy britches on because according to the sources that spoke with the Mail, in return for their attendance, Harry is expecting some certain terms and conditions to be met. The source reports, all the indications are that Harry is being advised to agree to nothing at this stage and play along right up to the last minute, which is making negotiations with him very difficult. Harry's camp made clear that the idea that he would just attend the coronation and behave himself, but then be stripped of his titles was a total non-starter. The source continues saying while he might decide at some point to discard his titles of his own volition, he objects to the idea of being forcibly stripped of them. Well, naturally, he would object to them possibly losing their titles, considering it is not in their best interest to find out if Netflix is going to be so generous if suddenly they are not the Duke and Duchess of Sussex anymore, but instead plain old Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor. Alright, so let's take a look at the bigger picture in all of this. For the king, it looks like he's going after a containment strategy, some way of trying to minimize the chances of Meghan and Harry staging some type of TV fit right at precisely the moment that Justin is anointing him with oil, or perhaps he's busy reciting the coronation oath. So as far as I can tell, it seems like the king is thinking that it's much safer to make a few concessions and keep Meghan and Harry happy, rather than have to worry about what they might be planning in Montecito. But can or will this strategy of appeasing Meghan and Harry even work? So if the king decides to go down this route, would it ultimately work in his favor, or might it end up being a complete disaster? Now, if we can learn anything from recent history, then it would seem that this is quite a risk. In the last 12 months, we have had two big royal events, the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee 4-day celebration, and then also her funeral in September, both of which Harry and Meghan were not only there, but they were on their best behavior. See, on both of those occasions, Meghan and Harry showed that even though they often choose not to, they do know how to act right. But if we look back to both of these historic outings, we can see that Harry and Meghan's presence was looming over the proceedings. Their very presence back behind the palace gates and the firm's handling of their return were some pretty big stories in the media. And we can understand why. I mean, what would you want to read about? Would you want to read about some elderly man participating in a very long religious ceremony? Or would you want to read about the latest glamorous installment in this royal scandal? I mean, just think about it. Think about the potential for fireworks as William and Catherine set eyes on Meghan and Harry for the very first time since Spare was released. And the more that I think about the whole issue, the more I'm curious about whether or not Charles can even win the fight for public and media attention if Meghan and Harry attend. So let's imagine that when May rolls around, Harry and Meghan come to London and things go well. We would end up with photos of William and Catherine and Harry and Meghan closer than they probably want to be, and we'll probably see no one throwing a punch or bursting into tears either. Just imagine the headlines. The brothers reunite, love wins out, splitting heirs. It would be the biggest story of the day, that is for sure. Or let's imagine things go sour and having William and Catherine and Meghan and Harry together would trigger a whole repeat of Commonwealth Day of 2020, when the tension was so thick between the two couples that you could cut it with a knife. It would be the biggest, or at least the most clicked, read, and shared story of the day. And the other option the king has is really just to take a stand and issue a coronation invitation to Meghan and Harry, but tell them that they do not get to issue any terms and conditions. It's not likely to work out in his favor if he were to go down that road. It's not like Harry and Meghan are shy about showing up on TV and sharing how they feel about the royal family, are they? So Harry and Meghan have the king over a bit of a barrel, but the very best kind of barrel, of course, for the king. It seems like Spare has hit its mark, and the way things are now, with just over 3 months to go, it looks like Charles is willing to capitulate in order to avoid further drama. Lucky Justin Welby left to broker this deal. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. So I just hope that he can find the inner strength to sort out this whole mess, because I know I wouldn't be able to.